Good afternoon. My name is Harry Daniels. ANIELS, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, National Civil Rights Attorney. Alongside me, I have Norman Harris, the Champions Law Firm out of Tampa, Florida. And we're standing here with LaKen Woods to my left and his mother. We also have, what's the name of your organization? The Dream Defenders here in Duval County. You can back this up for us. Back up there. Take a step back. Today we filed a federal lawsuit in the Middle District of Georgia, Middle District of Florida, United States Courthouse, on behalf of LaKen Woods, the plaintiff, against former office detective Jose Trey Color. I think Bo Daigle, if not saying that correctly. This complaint deals with the incident that took place here. Sadly beaten by 3 of these named individuals. The one individual, Mr. Daigle, he was one of the individuals who stopped the vehicle which Mr. Woods was in and held Mr. Woods and the passengers at gunpoint, all for a seatbelt violation. Hold on one second. I'm going to read some of these charges, counts we have here, and I'm going to let come up and speak about some of these things as well. Specifically, defendants Gariga, Sullivan, as well as McCullough, concerning with excessive use of force. Department of Justice responded based on when the sheriff sent an inquiry up to the Department of Justice, and they responded back the next day. So they were right; they did no investigation of the matter. We have connects with that individual who made that decision, sent that letter down, his boss, and that's the Deputy Attorney General over the Civil Rights Division. Specifically about this meeting of the LaKen Woods. More importantly, when you look at the video itself, you talk about what happened that day. An alleged allegation made by the former Sheriff Jose Gariga about alleged drug deal. Well, again, that drug deal never took place. No drug deal. It's the same MO that Jose Gariga had in the past, trying to stop people for not having a seatbelt on. We admit that's a legitimate stop, but Mr. Harris will tell you it's not warranted to bring guns for an infraction. It's only a $30 fine. Well, when you pull out guns, you hold these black men at gunpoint and tell them don't move. If you move, I'm going to beat you. Well, LaKen Woods, he took flight because all he sees is a man with a gun pointed at him, and they was only stopping for a seatbelt violation. You know, some people say they wish LaKen Woods would have ran. But I would say should have ran faster, because when she got caught by him, tased by him, you saw what happened next. You know, we don't by any means tell anybody not to adhere to the orders of law enforcement, but at the same time, that doesn't warrant a savage beating by law enforcement. I used to work in law enforcement myself. What took place was a crime. And there's nothing short of anything else, specifically when you saw the injuries that was on LaKen. You had 3 deputy sheriffs in Jacksonville County, sheriff office, who weighed over 200 pounds, beating LaKen, who may weigh 150 pounds, soaking wet. He had already been tased. He was already been coordinated. He had 3 officers. What's the justification for coming near him in the head multiple times? Which is, and let me be very clear, which is deadly force in the 11th Circuit. If you knee a person in the head, strike him in the head, that constitutes deadly force here in the 11th Circuit, Georgia, Alabama. That's case law. Now, ask yourself this question. Was the running of LaKen Woods justification of deadly force? I can answer that question. It's no. Further, you have Detective McCullough, who, if I'm not mistaken, Fonzo and Johnny, he's been suspended before for beating a woman here in Jacksonville. Only got 15 days suspension. So he's not a stranger to unlawful excessive use of force. He takes LaKen's head, once LaKen is in handcuffs, and slam it into the ground. I guess the sheriff said that's okay also. When you have an individual that's been subdued, placed in handcuffs, and then you slam his face into the ground. So these claims are just the beginning of this action. We do plan on making amendments to this complaint, specifically with claims against Jacksonville Sheriff Office, specifically JSO, the city of Jacksonville, as well as other claims. This is just the beginning of these claims that we brought here. We have no specific amount of what we are seeking, and the only thing we can seek, and I want to be very clear, we're not filing this lawsuit just for the appeasement of LaKen or his mother, his family. This lawsuit being filed to try to seek a measure of justice. A measure of justice that we can, that as a man or a jury or a judge can only give to one. True justice can only be given by God. Vengeance is the Lord's. Amen. Vengeance is the Lord's, no matter what. And I think that it's time that we acknowledge that something is fundamentally wrong with the Jacksonville Sheriff Office. This is no new incident. I've represented people down here in Jacksonville on police shootings. We have other cases that we represent individuals on, and it's a continuous pattern that we see, and it's time for something to be done. This one case is not the one case that's going to change this. Hopefully this case is something that we can put a spotlight on to call into question about retraining these officers, that you don't stop a person and pull a gun and hold them at gunpoint for a seatbelt violation. But with that being said, I'm going to have Mr. Harris come up and speak about that particular incident, and Mr. Ken Wood's going to come up as well. Then we're going to have Q&A.
Yeah, let us just be clear that this is a case of clear miscarriage of justice and racial profiling. This is not a case where law enforcement saw young men who have warrants for violent alleged allegations or offenses. This is a case where a stop was conducted based on a seatbelt violation, and these officers get out with guns drawn. Very indicative of racial profiling and a miscarriage of justice. And what did Mr. Woods do? Well, in a case like this, it's no surprise for someone to respond with fight or flight. So law enforcement creates these hostile situations that leaves, at least in the victim's mind, that this is a fight or flight situation, and then turn around and use the law against them when they exercise one of those options. And this is exactly what happened. He opted out with the option of flight. And what was the result of that? He got savagely beaten. So something is seriously wrong about that. The stop itself, although we do recognize in the state of Florida, even if there is a pretextual motive, if there is a legal basis, such as a traffic infraction, it's a legal stop. So we're not arguing that it was not a legal stop, but notwithstanding it was a legal stop, it was a racial profiling situation which led to the excessive use of force with the drawing of guns, which is totally unreasonable, which ultimately led to Mr. Wood fleeing. So we are here because we are champions for justice. And we believe that we must raise our voices for what is right, not just for this family, but to send a message. And let me just say this before I conclude. There were some officers, as my co-counsel alluded to, that have been involved in similar situations. Well, one of the officers that he didn't point out was Jose Carriga. He was involved in another situation that involved the death, in that situation was the death of a young man. So at some point, we gotta just step back and read the handwritings on the wall and investigate what's really going on so that this won't keep occurring. This time we're here from Mr. Woods.
Let's throw one, man.
How you doing? I'm Lakeem Woods.
You ain't got to be there. They can't hear you.
All right, well, on September 29, 2023, I was stopped at a traffic stop, and I ran. I got kind of scared that they was gonna shoot me when I had like seen the situation, so I panicked and I ran. Basically, for the most part, and then the rest kind of speak for itself.
You know, Lakeem is still under treatment and care of physicians. He has some, and we put in a complaint. He has some permanent physical injuries with his left eye, some nerve damage. He's still under care. He had a ruptured kidney as well. All of that wasn't warrant for somebody taking flight. You know, even in the report, one of the Jose Garriga acknowledges that kneeing somebody in the head is not right. He said it was accidental. The video speaks for itself. It wasn't accidental. He struck him like 4 or 5 times, kneed him in the head. And you got Officer Sullivan punch him in the face. Officer McCullough elbowing him in the eye 3 times. Elbow, these are sharp, hard bones. That's elbowing him in the eye. You got 3 grown men, law enforcement, who I'm sure they went through training, ground training, combat training. I did. Able to hold a person and put handcuffs on. This situation, very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. The history of Jacksonville Sheriff Office, and I know a lot of people, you know, polarizing comments. You know, some people look at JSO as a JSO as a law enforcement officer, but some people in certain part of towns call JSO just shoot on sight. And we've seen cases where they just shot on sight, and they made the comment they was reaching, or they looked back. Even with multiple witnesses and that state's attorney's office behind us, multiple witnesses came to there and said differently. We've not seen one indicted. Out of 300 plus shooting cases here in Jacksonville, only 3 of them have been determined to be, and that's from 2015 to 2024, only 3 of them determined outside the policy. And even the ones who determined outside the policy, the state's attorney's office, and I would point to those cases to you, the state's attorney's office said that this was accidental shootings. That's a problem. That's a problem. You have video individuals who's walking away, running away, being shot and killed. And that's why Lakeem took off running. He know people who've been shot by JSO, you know, and the family know, and they said the shooting was justified. This is a problem. This is something that we're trying to correct. We want good law enforcement in the community. We need good law enforcement in the community. But there's nothing short of what happened to Lakeem was a group of bad apples. One of the officers who we prosecuted before civilly is now scheduled to go to federal prison on some acts that were committed. You know, that should tell you the type of character that some of these people you have working at the JSO. And, you know, and Sheriff Waters, he immediately tried to walk back his statement about he had good officers. Well, good officers don't do things like that. I've seen good officers. I was one of them. I've seen bad officers. And bad officers do not belong to where it's badge, shield, or star. Mama, you want to say anything? All right, with that being, y'all want to say anything? With that being said, we're going to take some questions.
I have a question for...
Hold on, shoot, you go.
I have 2 questions. My first one's for Mr. Woods.
Yeah, I'll decide if I let him answer that question. Go ahead and answer the question.
My question for him is, now that you know what you know now, would you do anything differently?
She said, Nev, you know what you know now about what they did to you. Would you done anything different? No. Said no.
Okay, and then my other question for you, you mentioned count 1. Are there several counts in there as well?
Absolutely, there's several counts. So this lawsuit is dissected into counts. The first counts really go towards the first 3 officers. I believe the second count goes towards, hold on one second here. They got it back in both sides here. What is count 2? Well, the other counts go towards Sullivan and Daigle for pulling the gun out on the stop, and one count, sole count, goes against Sullivan for slamming his head into the ground. We also have within count 1, we talk about Garriga using kneeing him in the head as deadly force, because that constitutes as deadly force. So no matter any way you look at it, what happened that day did not warrant deadly force. Deadly force, if you can use deadly force, you can shoot a person. He's definitely the action that took place by LaKen for running did not warrant any deadly force whatsoever. Go ahead.
My question is for LaKen. It's been more than a year since this incident. How do you feel physically and emotionally? What injuries are still ongoing more than a year after?
Well, I'm not going to let him talk about his injuries specifically, but he can answer the other part of the question. How you feel today? Up to the mic.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
In shorter words, I got to forgive him.
What kind of pain do you go through on a daily basis?
A lot of migraine pain, a lot of eyesight pain, a lot of I don't know, I don't even know what it's called.
All right.
I have another question for you, sir. Officer Jose Garriga no longer employed with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office after being charged federally with unrelated child sex crimes.
Right.
Do any of those charges come into play with the timing of this lawsuit? What
do you mean the timing? He was a JSO officer at the time that these acts were committed, regardless of his current status as a former JSO officer. No matter where he's at, if he's in federal prison, we'll serve him in federal prison by the United States Marshal Service. So that has no bearing on us moving forward. He didn't act alone in this. Now I would say this. He initiated the whole entire thing. I don't believe, just my past history in dealing with him and not being truthful, I don't believe he saw anything at the gas station. I believe he saw LaKen and he saw the other individuals and he made it up. But we understand that the other officers who did not see anything got the information from him, which can justify a stop. But quite frankly, we don't believe that he saw anything. In fact, he to my understanding, been placed on a Brady list, which you can't testify. Once you get placed on a Brady list, you can't testify because your testimony is questionable, the credibility of your testimony. All right?
I do have a question for you. So right now you guys are going after the people responsible. Will you now go after JSO after?
Absolutely. So this lawsuit would be amended at some point, or additional lawsuit, specifically on some state claims against Jacksonville. I don't know if JSO or Jacksonville, city of Jacksonville, how you cast a lawsuit. But nevertheless, there are going to be additional claims, maybe additional defendants as well, for his customs policies with the sheriff office. I mean, you gotta think about this. The sheriff said specifically that his officers didn't do anything wrong. Well, the law in the United States courts in the 11th Circuit says differently, and the sheriff should at minimum put his officers on notice, where the law put them on notice, that you can't knee a person in the head multiple times. You can't slam a person face down, causing injury to him in handcuffs. That's the law. You can't use excessive force. So I know he made a comment that sometimes it get nasty, the use of force. Well, justified use of force may be nasty. This is unjustified, unlawful, excessive use of force. Not based on what Harry Daniels or Norman Harris or John Bird says, based on what the law. And that's why we brought a legal law complaint, because we challenging the actions of his officers versus the law and see what the law has to say about it.
Dennis, what's the timeline looking forward to when you expect this to go to trial, or the next steps for you?
Well, I can't really guess any timeline. You know, the federal courts tends to move faster than state courts, but it's a lot of cases pending in the federal courts as well. And I'm sure that once we file a lawsuit, they'll make the city of Jacksonville will file all type of motions and pleadings. We've worked with them before. They're pretty good law department, I would say so. Pretty good lawyers over there. But nevertheless, that doesn't stop us from moving forward. We don't know the time frame of a trial, if there even would be a trial. But the only thing we can do from our standpoint and on behalf of the Woods family is bring a lawsuit to try to get a measure of justice for this family.
Is there some like legal reason that you're filing a lawsuit against the individual officers now and JSO as an organization later on?
That's a great question. Yes, he asked, was there any legal reason why we're filing a lawsuit now? Well, it's a strategic reason, not necessarily legal. I don't want to give my strategies away. But the most important thing is that the United States laws afford plaintiff opportunity to sue individual law enforcement in their individual capacities for acts committed within the scope of their employment. That's 42 U.S.C. 1983. That's the type of lawsuit we brought. These are all federal claims. At some point, state claims will be added to this case, specifically dealing with battery, negligent retention, I'm sorry, not negligent, but negligent retention and negligent hiring and supervision. As I mentioned before, one of these officers, Sullivan, y'all did a story on him. He had a history of assaulting a lady. I believe him and his dad beat up a woman outside a bar maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I think Garriga speaks for itself, the history he has. We'll find out more about the other officers. But with that being said, it's a lot strategically why we didn't bring certain claims and bringing certain claims now to bring certain claims later.
If the officers acted within JSO policy, as they claim, is part of your lawsuit want that policy changed?
Well, the sheriff already said it acted within the policy. So clearly, we're talking about a amended complaint. That's some things we need to bring up that their policy, and it may not be their policy. You know, most policies are clear line about use of force, excessive use of force, and unlawful use of force. So I don't believe, I haven't seen that policy. If I've seen it, I haven't looked at it in a while. So I don't believe they were within their own policies. Now, if the sheriff said they acted within the policies, then the sheriff created a culture and an atmosphere to allow them to act the way they want to act. And that's where the Department of Justice, United States government need to come in and maybe do a revamping of the JSO Sheriff Office. Like I said, this may not be the case. Another case may be coming real soon, specifically dealing with that. We have cases, we have over 300 involved shootings here. Over 300 involved shootings. You can go to the JSO website, you can see those shootings. Some of those shootings videos are not even uploaded. Some of those, that's a letter from the state's attorney's office saying the shooting was justified with no transparency whatsoever. What type of transparency, what type of accountability? You know, I always say this, and I told Norman here, I'm the boss of the law, Sir Harry M. Daniels. If I'm late to work, nothing's going to happen. If you allow JSO to investigate themselves, nothing is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen, continue to see people beaten, continue to see people dead, and there's no justification, no accountability, no transparency that take place. At minimum, you owe it to the taxpayers. If you gun down a citizen, at least let the taxpayer know it was justified. Just don't give us a letter saying it was justified without giving a video of any evidence to show that the shooting, the transparency of the shooting, so the taxpayers can sleep good at night and know that their officers are actually doing their jobs. Any other questions? That's it. Listen, guys, thank you. More to come. We'll let you know about the update of this case. I think y'all have our media contact, Michael Kill's information, and he should have gave y'all a copy of the lawsuit. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. All right. God bless you.